Haitian one?
Good afternoon, sir.
Oh, good
So
afternoon.
I have a series of questions about Myanmar. The foreign ministers are set to hold a virtual meeting with their Myanmar counterpart. Was it the leaders who gave this instruction to the foreign ministers? Do the leaders also agree that meeting the Myanmar foreign minister is an appropriate or a necessary step to take at this time? Could you explain, the rationale behind it? Additionally, is this virtual meeting with Myanmar a step toward the normalization of the status of Myanmar in ASEAN? And is it a recognition of the new government of Myanmar? Last one, what are ASEAN's thoughts on the results of the Myanmar general election and whether it will recognize the newly formed government? Thank you.
Well, there is no need to further recognize Myanmar. The government of Myanmar has been recognized, and that's why Myanmar is a member state. And however, because of the situation in Myanmar, where there is a humanitarian disaster that's going on, there's continued fighting going on. There is a impending. There's what is a low-level civil war still going on. Then that is why the ASEAN proposed the 5 points of consensus. And these essentially are that we have peace, that there's representation, the things that are necessary for a democratic state to function. And this 5 points of consensus was agreed upon by Myanmar. But unfortunately, we have not seen the actual implementation or despite the adoption of the 5 points of consensus, we have not seen any progress in Myanmar. And it's interesting that you should ask that because I just came, before coming here, we just had the retreat wherein the leaders of the member states sit down and have a closed door session. And one of the big subjects that was taken up was Myanmar. And I believe that it is many of the members aired their frustration about the lack of progress in the process of normalizing the situation in Myanmar and trying to find a way forward, trying to find some kind of agreement amongst the member states. We all agree that we would like to see more progress. We all agree that we all should try very hard to find ways to shift what has become a moribund process right now. It is not moving. And certainly, although we will not abandon any of the main principles by which by which ASEAN operates, such as the respect for human rights, the rule of law, and in the specific case of Myanmar, on the 5 points, there was the beginnings amongst in that discussion. It was a very, very vibrant discussion and in some cases, at some points, emotional discussion, because as I said during the retreat, and I don't think I'm betraying any confidence when I say this, that we have to do something because Myanmar is not merely a trade partner. Myanmar is not merely a friend to ASEAN. Myanmar is part of the ASEAN family. And it is a tragedy when a family member is left out of the family for whatever reason. And so there was I think, a tacit agreement that we need to do more. We need to find we need to find other ways to move the process forward. What those other ways are is something that we now will have to go away and think about. And we agreed that our foreign ministers, our foreign secretary, would that first of all that the leaders would try to find any ideas. Because as we were sitting there, we said, we don't have the answers here. These things will not be decided now. But we will go away and try and find, maybe think about what can be done to improve the process and to start to see some progress in that process of normalizing, once again, normalizing the situation in Myanmar. So it's still a thorny problem for which we cannot say that there are obvious solutions. But there has been a nano shift, perhaps, in the approach to the situation in Myanmar. There are no definitive answers as yet, but we are certainly going to work on it very, very hard.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next question from Chad Williams at Agence France Presse. Chad? There you are.
You basically pretty thoroughly answered my questions just now, Mr. President. It's pretty clear there's a divide, though, and I'm wondering what the main role the Philippines as chair can play in bridging the divide, these different opinions about how best to eventually reintegrate Myanmar. I know Thailand is pushing hard for it. They've got border issues and any other number of reasons to do so. Malaysia just yesterday said that Myanmar has not done nearly enough to earn high-level talks. So yeah, I'm just wondering what you think, especially from the Myanmar perspective, what's the baseline concession they need to be offering to get the ball rolling?
Well, I suppose in a way we have asked our question, that question of ourselves, and that was I think the nub of the discussion that we had today. And that question is not that we certainly do not believe that we have not done enough, but the question was different. The question was, what more can we do? And that's how the discussion was directed. And what more can we do? Because it's not moving forward. And ASEAN has taken a position, and I think it is a correct one. And we still hope that that position will be consistent to whatever agreements we come to with Myanmar. And so it's become very, very important that there certainly is some frustration within the member states that we have to find not necessarily a better way. I'm not talking about some paradigm shift where we abandon our own our principles that we have lived by. When it comes to this, we don't abandon ASEAN centrality. We do not abandon the respect for human rights. We do not abandon the humanitarian disaster, the concern for humanitarian disaster. But it is certainly frustrating for the member states that the process has not moved, or if it has moved very little, certainly not as much as we had hoped it would have by this time. So again, as my answer was to the previous question, we have all decided, because ASEAN had a very clear position, and I'm sure you're familiar with, and we have stayed with that position. Now maybe it's time to what we were talking about was not talking about changing our position or changing the things that we are aspiring to achieve, but perhaps seeing this methodology could be better or could be fine-tuned further. And one of the arguments that was made is that the world has turned. How many times since we started this discussion, since we started having to deal with this situation? And perhaps the context has changed a little bit. And maybe we should take that into account. That's not necessarily the case, but this is the discussion that we had.
The next question will come from Kit Leong of Cannes. Yes, Kit.
Good evening, Mr. President.
Good.
Mr. President, earlier you mentioned that there was a nano shift seen in Myanmar. Can I get you to elaborate on that? And also, what is Myanmar's response to ASEAN's request to meet Daw Aung San Suu Kyi? And would eventual access to her shape the overall decisions ASEAN has on Myanmar? Thank you.
Well, that is one of the main aspects of it. Is how the status and the treatment of the lady, as she has come to be called. But in Myanmar, I wouldn't even go so far as to call it a shift. I think it is more a recognition that we have to find other ways or something to move the thing forward. And we were talking about, I said, in negotiations, sometimes when you move the parameters 1 millimeter, it makes all the difference. So we're asking all the member states, all the leaders and their ministries, what that millimeter shift could possibly be. And I think everyone is very enthusiastic to come up with their own ideas. And that is what we ended with. We said, let's share our ideas and let our foreign ministers talk about it, and then we will see what of those ideas are actually actionable, are actually going to be effective, and we will try them. And that was the conclusion that we came to during this last retreat.
Sorry, Mr. President. Sorry, just a follow-up. What about Myanmar's response to ASEAN's request to meet Daw Aung San Suu Kyi?
I'm sorry, what?
What is Myanmar's response to ASEAN's request for the envoy to meet Daw Aung San Suu Kyi?
We didn't move on that. That is one of the main aspects of our negotiation, if you want to call it, with the government of Myanmar. That she be freed and that she be allowed to exercise her rights, and that if she is recognized as a leader, that she be able to function as a leader. That hasn't changed one iota.